Welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be tackling something pretty massive, honestly.
Yeah.
Handbook that claims to cover
Oh, wow.
the entire state of the world.
The whole thing.
I mean, we're talking economics and politics and culture, the environment,
Ow.
you name it.
It's ambitious.
Ambitious doesn't
Yes.
even begin to describe it.
What's impressive to me is that it's not just like a surface level overview.
Right.
This handbook really sets out to be like a one-stop resource for understanding, I think, like the most important global trends and challenges that we're facing.
Yeah.
And it's designed to be both comprehensive and insightful.
So how on earth do they even attempt to pull that off?
Right.
Did they just like lock a bunch of experts in a room for a year with nothing but coffee and spreadsheets?
Pretty much, yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
They used a very rigorous methodology.
Okay.
It involved a huge literature review.
Okay.
Pulling from some seriously reputable sources, I mean, we're talking the UN, World Bank, IPCC,
Those are the big ones.
the heavy hitters
Yeah.
in data and research.
Okay, so we're not just talking about random internet factoids here.
No.
We're talking about like,
This is,
this is built on solid ground.
yes, solid ground.
But with that much data, it would be so easy to just get lost in the weeds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do they keep it from being just like a giant information dump?
They emphasize, I think, a holistic perspective.
Okay.
So they don't just look at individual issues in isolation,
Yeah.
but rather how they connect and influence each other.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, imagine trying to understand a traffic jam by like only looking at one car.
Right.
You need to see the whole picture to really kind of get it.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Right.
And we hear all the time that everything's connected.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to grasp exactly how that works in reality.
Right.
So how does this handbook bring that interconnectedness to life for the reader?
Well, they were very careful about potential biases in the data
Okay.
and transparent about any limitations. And they also did something really smart, I thought. They included case studies
Oh, interesting.
to illustrate the key points.
Oh, that's nice.
So you're not just reading these abstract theories, you're seeing how these global trends play out in real world situations.
So it's almost like having a guide, like walking you through these complex systems and showing you how they all fit together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the most important connections I think they highlight is the relationship between human systems and Earth systems.
Right.
They make it very clear that human actions are profoundly impacting the planet,
Of course.
from climate change to biodiversity loss.
Yeah, we hear about this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
What makes this handbook different?
They go beyond just listing the problems. You know, what they do is they emphasize that our societies are completely dependent on these very Earth systems that we're disrupting. You know, think about it. I mean, they provide us with everything from food and water to clean air and stable climates.
Yeah.
It's a relationship we often take for granted.
It's very easy to forget that connection when you're just like going about your daily life.
Oh,
You
totally.
turn on the tap and water comes out.
Yeah.
You go to the store and there's food on the shelves.
Yeah, you don't think about it.
We don't always see that like intricate web that makes all that possible,
That's exactly the point.
right?
The handbook's trying to drive home.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're not separate from nature.
Right.
We're deeply embedded in these systems, and our actions have consequences.
So it's not just about understanding the problems, it's about understanding our role in those problems.
Exactly.
It's about acknowledging that we have a responsibility to change the way we interact with the planet.
Absolutely. And that's why I think this handbook is so important. You know, it's
Yeah.
not just a collection of facts and figures, it's a call to action.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the complexity of the challenges we face, but also recognizing that we have the power to shape the future.
Now, that is a powerful message, and we've only just scratched the surface of this handbook.
I know, right?
There's so much more to explore, so stay with us as we continue our deep dive into the state of our world.
You know, one of the things that really struck me about the handbook's approach
Yeah.
is how they don't just present like the doom and gloom of all these environmental challenges.
Yeah.
They also highlight
Right.
the incredible resilience of Earth's systems,
That's a good point.
you know?
Yeah, we often focus on the negative,
Yeah.
and rightfully so.
Right.
But it's important to remember that
Yeah.
nature has this amazing ability to bounce back
Totally.
if given the chance.
Yeah, given the chance, exactly.
Yeah.
And they use this idea of resilience
Okay.
to frame their discussion of potential solutions.
Interesting.
So they argue that If we understand how these systems work, how they can adapt,
Okay.
we can find ways to work with nature, not against it.
Okay, so instead of just trying to like fix the environment, we need to think about how we can create a more sustainable relationship with it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a very different way of approaching these issues.
It is, and they give some really concrete examples, like regenerative agriculture,
Okay.
which focuses on rebuilding soil health and capturing carbon from the atmosphere.
So it's about moving away from this linear take, make, waste model and towards a more cyclical approach.
Exactly.
Where everything is interconnected and nothing is truly wasted. It sounds almost like a completely different economic system.
It does, doesn't it? And that's what makes the handbook so thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It's not just about tweaking the system we have.
Yeah.
It's about reimagining the way we interact with the world around us.
Which brings us back to that idea of interconnectedness.
Yes.
It's not just about the environment, right? It's about how all these different aspects of our world
all of them.
are kind of woven together.
Absolutely. And the handbook dives into this further by looking at specific examples of how these connections play out. For instance, they have a really fascinating section on the link between climate change and migration.
Yeah, that's something you hear about in the news all the time.
All the time.
But it's easy to just see it as like headlines and statistics.
Right.
How does the handbook make this connection more tangible for the reader?
They use case studies from different parts of the world to show how climate change is already displacing people.
Wow.
You have coastal communities being swallowed by rising sea levels.
Right.
Farmers struggling with drought and crop failure.
It's scary.
Entire regions becoming uninhabitable due to extreme heat.
It's easy to forget that these are real people's lives being affected by these global trends.
Absolutely.
You know, we hear about climate refugees.
Yeah.
But this handbook puts a human face on the issue.
Exactly. And it helps us understand that these are not isolated incidents.
Right.
They're part of a larger pattern
Yeah.
as climate change intensifies.
Yeah.
We can expect to see more and more people forced to leave their homes.
It's a sobering thought. And it highlights the need to find solutions, not just to climate change itself,
Yeah.
but also to the social and economic consequences that come with it.
Exactly. And the handbook doesn't shy away from the complexity of these issues.
Yeah.
They acknowledge that there are no easy answers.
Right.
But they argue that understanding the interconnectedness of these challenges is the first step towards finding solutions.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle.
Exactly.
You can't just focus on one piece.
Right.
You need to see how all the pieces fit together.
You got it.
And this handbook is giving us the tools to start putting that puzzle together.
It really is. And it's not just about providing information.
Right.
It's about inspiring action.
Yeah.
The handbook is a call for all of us to become more engaged citizens,
Okay.
to ask critical questions,
Yeah.
and to demand change.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive bystanders in this global drama.
Right.
We all have a role to play in shaping the future. And I think that's a really empowering message.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but there's still so much to explore.
I know.
We haven't even touched on the handbook's insights on technology, culture, and governance.
There's plenty more to unpack, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But for now, I think we've given our listeners a good taste of what this handbook has to offer.
Yes, we have. So stay with us as we continue our journey into the fascinating world of the state of our world.
It's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed, you know,
Yeah.
when we're talking about all these like complex global challenges. Like, what can one person really do in the face of all this?
It's a fair point.
Yeah.
I think we all have those moments where we feel a bit powerless, you know?
Right.
Like the problems are just too big for us to make a difference.
Yeah. And I think that's where this handbook really shines.
Okay.
It doesn't leave you feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
Instead, it empowers you with knowledge and understanding.
Okay.
Because when you see the bigger picture, you know.
Yeah.
When you understand how these systems work, how they're connected, it becomes
Right.
easier to identify those leverage points where you can make a difference.
So it's not about trying to like solve every problem at once.
Right.
It's about finding those specific areas where your actions can have the biggest impact.
Exactly. And the handbook offers some really practical examples of what this can look like.
Oh.
For instance, in their discussion of technology and innovation,
Yeah.
they highlight the power of individual choices.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What kind of choices are we talking about here?
Well, they use the example of consumer electronics.
Okay.
You know, our smartphones, laptops, all those gadgets that we rely on.
Right, right.
They point out that the production of these devices has a huge environmental impact.
Yeah.
From mining the raw materials
Of course. source
to manufacturing and shipping them all over the world.
We don't always think about that full life cycle of those products.
Yeah.
We just see the shiny new phone in the store.
Exactly. But the handbook encourages us to think beyond that initial purchase, to ask questions like, where did these materials come from? How is this product made?
Right.
What happens to it when I'm done with it?
So it's about becoming more conscious consumers.
Yes.
Considering the ethical and environmental implications of our purchases.
Precisely. And they argue that when enough people start making these conscious choices, it can send a really powerful signal to companies and even governments.
Wow.
It can drive demand for more sustainable practices, for products that are designed to last longer and be repaired for a more circular economy overall.
It's almost like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Individual actions can create this wave of change that spreads throughout the system.
That's the idea. And they give other examples too, like getting involved in local initiatives to promote sustainable living, supporting businesses that are committed to ethical practices.
Yeah.
Even just having conversations with your friends and family about these issues.
Those are all things that feel very doable.
Right.
Even in the face of these massive global challenges.
Exactly. The handbook reminds us that change doesn't always have to be big and dramatic.
Right.
It can start with small, everyday actions.
And that's a message I think we can all take to heart.
For sure.
It's easy to feel helpless when we're confronted by the scale of these global issues.
I know.
But this handbook gives us a sense of agency, of possibility.
Totally.
It reminds us that we all have the power to make a difference.
It really does. And I think that's ultimately the most valuable takeaway from this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
It's not just about understanding the world as it is.
Right.
It's about feeling empowered to shape the world we want to see.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our exploration of the state of our world.
I agree.
This handbook has given me a whole new perspective on the challenges and the opportunities that we face as a global society.
Me too. It's a really good reminder that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And that even small actions can have a big impact.
To our listeners, I really encourage you to seek out this handbook for yourselves.
Yes.
It's a dense read, but it's well worth the effort.
It is.
And who knows? Maybe it'll inspire you to take action in your own way.
Maybe.
To become a part of the solution.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving for a better future.